this video, we are going to develop Node.js based TCP client which communicates with Node.js TCP server. In my previous video, I already covered on how to develop and test a simple Node.js based TCP server application. I'm going to use the same TCP server application whatever I developed earlier in order to develop this new TCP client. Let us quickly check on what TCP server application I currently have. So if you see this, I have a project called Node.js console application. So in fact, this is nothing but the TCP server application we developed as part of my previous video. So let us quickly run this and see what's going on. So this is my server currently listening at port number 9000. So I can quickly check and test this particular TCP server using a packet sender utility. So this is the utility which I am going to use in order to test my TCP server application. So I'm going to say that this is the message or this is the name I am sending to the server. So JAG, so this is the string which is going to be sent to the sent to the server application. And what is the destination? So I'm saying that my TCP server is currently listening at localhost, and that too at port number 9000. So you can see the address is currently localhost here and the port number is 9000. So this is the utility which tries to communicate with any of the TCP services available, so as long as you have access to that. So you can see it is localhost indirectly, and I'm saying that I'm going to send this string to the TCP server which is listening at port number 9000 in localhost. And you can see currently I'm using TCP IP protocol instead of UDP. So I select TCP IP here and click send. And the moment I send, you can see first of all there was a new client connection which has been made by 49457. So you can see that is the from port. And the data the server has received, so it has received the data from this port which is 49457, and the data is JAG, and the server has responded back to the same port number, and the response is hello JAG in this case. So you can see it is from 9000 to the current port. So it has sent hello JAG in reverse, and once that whole part is done, this utility has immediately closed the connection, which is fine. So I just close this for now. So we developed the TCP server earlier and we tested it using a third-party utility called packet sender. But now I would like to have a new TCP client to be developed which actually communicates with the same server and tries to communicate or pass messages just like what we did earlier. So there are various ways to develop TCP clients. You can develop using C# or Java or Node.js itself. So in this video, I am going to develop a Node.js based TCP client application. So let me close this first for now. So this is the server application. I just wanted to minimize this, and let me start a new solution altogether. Okay, so let me start. Right click, run as administrator, click as, and I'm going to have a new Visual Studio Solution instance opened, and now I'm going to start creating a new TCP client using Node.js. So I click on File, New Project, and in here I'm going to have inside this JavaScript we are going to have the Node.js, and in this case I am going to select Node.js console application, and I would like to call this one as Node.js TCP client, whatever you would like to mention. So I just click OK for now. So we are ready to develop the Node.js based TCP client. So first things first, Node.js is completely based on the pattern of asynchronous programming. So which means any kind of communication or the methodology to connect or to work with various other processes towards communication or IO or file or database or anything else is usually done using asynchronous programming methodology. So even in this case, in order to communicate with the TCP IP server, we are going to have the asynchronous model to be developed. So initially imagine I would like to have a function menu to be developed and would like to get it executed. So first things first, even before starting with a menu, we need to have certain other things to be done. For example, I would like to have the user to be providing some kind of value which needs to be sent to the TCP server. So which means our Node.js TCP client has to prompt for the user to actually type in some information and take that information into account and pass the same information to TCP server. So for that purpose, I would need some kind of string to be read directly from the console. So for that purpose, we can use a third-party module or node package called readLineSync. So in order to do that, first of all, I'm going to add that one, saying that install new npm packages. Okay. So as part of this, just type in readLineSync and you are going to see this. So this is a synchronous read line, so which means Node.js will be literally waiting for the user to type in some information. It will not proceed anything else other than waiting for your particular input. So that is called synchronized read line. So it will stop for the user's input. So I select this and I would like to add that one to the package.json in this case and finally click install and click close. And in your Node.js modules, you should be able to see readline sync, and in your package.json, you should be able to see readline sync after installation. So in order to use that, I would like to have a variable to be declared called readline sync, which is going to use the same module called readline sync. So that is the same module I would like to use. So that's the first thing. And the next thing is that in order to have a better look and feel towards colors, like the color whenever you send a message, the color whenever you receive a message, the color whenever any error occurs, like if error, it has to be red, something of that sort, so that it will be much more better from the visual perspective of your console application. So for that purpose, I would like to add one more package called colors. So I'm going to use colors 1.1.2 for now. I'm not quite sure about others, but I frequently use this guy, so I just go for this one and click install first. Make sure that add to package is always on. So I installed this one too, and we should be able to see in package.json colors is also added. So let me get the instance of color also here. So I am going to see require colors. So that's the next module I have. And as we are working with TCP client, obviously we are working with networking module. So in order to have the network related stuff, so I would like to import even the networking module too. So which means we are going to have the net, which is the module exclusively dedicated to have TCP based communications. So I'm getting the instance of that one too in the form of a variable called net. So now that we have everything, we need to have a couple more variables so that we can connect to our particular server. So in this case, I would like to have two variables called host and one more called port. So which means to which host you would like to connect and to what port you would like to connect as part of your server. So I am going to say like I would like to connect to 127.0.0.1, so which means it is nothing but the local host, and to which port I would like to connect, it is going to be 9000 for now. So this is a client application, so we are developing a client application which is going to connect to my server which is hosted at localhost and listening at port number 9000. So that is what I am going to provide there, and all of the communications I would like to have, which means the TCP client instance, I would like to maintain in a variable called variable client, and currently it is going to be null for now. So which means whenever I create an instance of TCP client connection and so on, or the socket, especially the client socket, that is going to be stored in client. So anyway, that is going to be null for now. And going further, as I mentioned earlier, I would like to have a function called menu. So the main responsibility of this function is to display menu to the user, or to prompt a kind of menu, and at the same time wait for the user to provide some kind of value, and based on that particular value it has to do on its own. So I would like to provide a couple of options for the user, like opening a connection, sending data, closing the connection, or quit this client application altogether. So I would like to have 4 options to be provided to the user, and based on those 4 options the user can select any of those options by providing 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 means opening the connection, 2 means send data, 3 means close connection, and 4 could be like exit our application, something similar to that. So I just wanted to make this one as simple as possible. So I would like to have a function menu to be developed. So as part of this function, first thing I would like to read a message, or say read an input from the user. So for that purpose I'm going to use readline sync, which is nothing but what we have instantiated earlier. And while reading a line of input from the user, I would like to provide question, so which is nothing but our menu. So I would like to say something like enter option. So I am going to say the first, so when the user types 1, it is nothing for opening a connection. 2 means send data. 3 means close. 4 means quit my application, and something similar to that. So I would like to have a particular input from the user. So all this particular line does is it displays this message first to the console. So this whole message will be displayed to the console, and it waits for the user to provide input. So that input could be any value between 1 to 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the value. And again, we are not validating the values here. It accepts any string. So as long as it is 1, 2, 3, 4, we need to provide certain operation to be performed. Otherwise, we just keep on reading the new option forever. So once we have the line read, so which means we already got the input from the user must have selected by providing 1, 2, 3, or 4. So once I have the user input, I would like to say switch line read. So which means based on whatever the input we have in here, I would like to say if it is case 1, so just for our sake I would like to say console.log option 1 selected. So just wanted to check if this is going to work as we wanted to have it. So break. Similarly, I would like to have case 2, and I'm going to say console.log option 2 selected. Similarly, I can have 2 more cases, case 3 and case 4. So in this case, I would like to say case 3, which is nothing but option 3 selected. Case 4, which means option 4 is selected. So on top of all of these, if the user provides anything other than these 4 options, I would like to say default. So within the default, I would like to say again go back to the same function called menu. So re-execute the same function menu and get the data again. Okay, and then I'm going to say break. So this is a simple thing I would like to accomplish. Okay, now that we have everything in place, like the menu is going to be read and we have this particular line which essentially prompts for the user to accept some value, and everything is in place. But there are a couple of things. There is no asynchronous model currently made available as part of this one. But as I mentioned, we need to have all of the programming pattern to be always developed by having a synchronous model in your mind. So for example, in this case menu, it is synchronous, which means this tries to execute this, and again after this is going to try to execute this, and this, and this, and this forever. So that is not how I would like to accomplish the things here. So why? Because if this is always synchronous, which means this menu is going to be nested forever, so which means it will be always added to the stack over and over and over again, and it will never come back until and unless our application is finished. So that may lead to memory leaks as well. So we need to have menu to be executed. However, the calling function should automatically execute, but the called function should proceed as usual. So which means I call menu, it has to do the menu, however it should not wait in order to complete that particular execution. So I do not want this call to be waiting forever in order to complete this call. It has to complete immediately. However, once this is called, it has to take on to the next one. So for that purpose, I'm going to use a simple option here with a set timeout. Of course, there are other better ways of writing this as part of our Node.js, but I just wanted to have things to be made simpler here. So there are more efficient ways, and in fact this is not quite efficient way. Usually we use process.nextTick. So that is the method we are going to use, but I just don't want to go into that much depth here, as because we need to cover all the event loops and everything, the theory behind it. So I just wanted to make this one simple. I am going to use set timeout. So similarly, I am going to use the same thing here. Okay, so which means I am going to have menu to be executed, but it is not going to wait for us. So once that is called, it will be waiting, but the function will be waiting for the user input, but not the previous function which tried to call this. So now I save this and let us try to execute this. Okay, so you can see it is waiting for the options. Now let us consider I'm trying to give something like this, and now you can see that it is going to do some, yes, because I did not provide some value 1 2 3 4, it is not going to provide any of the message here, but instead it is going to return back to the same thing and tries to ask for new input. But imagine if I press 1 and press enter, you can see it says option 1 selected, and the menu is out automatically. But imagine I would like to have this menu to be repeating forever, which means after option 1 selected, again I would like to have enter option to be prompted. So these options need to be prompted forever, even though I select a proper option. So for that purpose, I'm going to use whatever I have in here, even here. So which means immediately after the option has been selected, I would like to have the same menu to be called over and over again. So let me execute this. And now I say 1, and you can see option 1 selected, but you can see after some wait, why? Because it has to execute the set timeout and everything, so it has come back. So I say 2, and you can see it says option 2 selected, and after a couple more seconds it is going to give one more. As I said, this is not the most efficient way, but there are other efficient ways to accomplish the same, but I just wanted to make this one simple. So I say 3, and you can see it is still waiting for option 3 selected. And after this, if I select something like this, you can see it is going to simply skip the message and go out. But 4 is supposed to be quitting, but instead it is not going to quit, as because I actually put in 4 also to be calling the menu. So in this case, even after option 4 has been selected, it is still opting for the message, or say the opting for the input. So let me close this and remove this option right here. So I do not want the menu to be re-executed if option 4 has been selected. So let me test it once again. So I go here, I click I select one, and you can see option 1 selected, and I have option 2 selected. And if I select option 4, now you can see option 4 is done, and it is never going to give this message enter option again. So it never prompts for the user. The application is already done, so I can just press Ctrl C to close everything. So this is a very simple menu I have. All I really wanted to express or explain here is about the read line sync and our asynchronous programming model. So as I wanted to make it simple, I am using set timeout. So if you would like to make it more robust, there are other options which are available as part of Node.js framework, and we really need to have those kind of implementations rather than set timeout. Okay, so now that we have some understanding about our menu, so let us go to the implementations. So default, I just wanted to leave this one as usual. So if option 1 is selected, what I'm supposed to do? So I would like to call a function called open connection. So that is the function I'm going to write. And if option 2 is selected, I would like to say please get some data from user by using the same read line sync, and I'm going to say question enter data to send. So this is the question I'm going to provide, and on top of that I would like to have another function to be developed called send data. So this is the function which accepts whatever the data we receive from user, which is essentially nothing but some string. So if option 3 is selected, I would like to call another function called close connection. And if option 4 is selected, all I really want to have is just return, so nothing much. So we have our menu related function completed successfully. However, we still need to implement open connection, send data, and close connection. Let us start with open connection. So I need to implement a new function called open connection. So let me copy this. Let me collapse this whole menu altogether, and I am going to develop a new function called open connection. So what is this supposed to do? So this is a function which is essentially supposed to open a socket. So a client socket. So we have the socket, which means it's nothing but the endpoint, either from the client or from the server. So in this case, I would like to create a new socket and always make it available as part of client, so that other functions can use the same socket connection what we might be already having. So for that purpose, before even opening a connection, I just wanted to make sure that we do not open multiple connections by using the same socket. So we do not want multiple sockets to be opening from the same application. So I would like to have this particular application to work with only one single instance of socket at any moment. For that purpose, I am going to quickly check if my client, which is nothing but this variable, if it has already populated, so which means the socket has been already created. So if such is the case, I would like to say something like connection is already open, and I would like to have this message to be displayed in red, as because that is not supposed to happen, or if the user selects the wrong choice, and if he has already opened the connection and we are trying to reopen the same connection, that is not that good. So for that purpose, this is what I am going to provide as a message. And after this, all I would like to say is that immediately re-execute this menu. So which means whatever I have in here, I'm just saying like, please show me the menu and return immediately after this. So which means it displays the error message connection is already open, and then it again goes back to my menu and tries to ask the new option from the user, and I'm saying please do not wait till this completes. but you just go out by going return, so which means it will not stop here. If it stops, it is synchronous. If it doesn't stop, goes to the next line, it is asynchronous. So which means this will be accomplished, but in a different way. However, this does not stop while that particular way is being accomplished. Anyway, so now that we have this sanity check, whether the client is open or not, if it is open, it is going to display message. But imagine the client is not populated, so which means it is not null. In this case, I am going to create a new socket, client equal to new net.socket. So as I mentioned, we are using net here, and you can see at the same time using the socket class, which is made available as part of Node.js. So I created the new socket, and now on top of that, I would like to have all kinds of events to be registered. So which means if any error occurs, or if we receive any data from the server, or if we actually connect to the server, what should happen, and all of that particular stuff. So currently I would like to just register only for two events, which is error and data. So I would like to say on error. So I have on, and this IntelliSense is giving me some trouble, so I do not want IntelliSense here, and I'm going to say on. If I receive error, just call this function. That is the callback function I'm going to give, and I'm saying that please populate that particular error message into the object ERR, and I'm going to say if there is an error, I would like to have the client to be destroyed altogether. So which means I am closing the socket. I'm destroying the socket altogether. And on top of that, I would like to also say client equal to null, so that the socket connection or the socket instance is completely lost in memory and to be garbage collected eventually. And on top of that, I would like to display a message like a connection error exists here. So I would like to say connection could not be opened, and let us provide some message like %s. So I would like to provide that message in the form of red, and I am going to say error message. So I'm going to use this particular err.message to get the real message out of it. And if there is an error, all this happens, and immediately I would like to have the menu to be displayed. So that is how I'm going to have it. So whenever I receive an error, this is the function it is trying to execute. I display the message. Of course, I nullify the client whatever I have, or remove the socket first, and then I'm going to have that particular message to be displayed and redisplay the menu for connecting again. Okay, now that we have completed this error event, let us register for data event. So let me go for on and data event. So which means this is the event which is going to be fired whenever our client receives a message or any kind of information back from the server. So this is the receiving event. So which means if our client receives any information from the server, this is going to be hit. And I would like to have a callback function to be made available here. So all the information I would like to make sure that it is available as part of this object. And as part of this one, I just wanted to display the same message I am having. So instead of error message, I'm going to display something like received, and I would like to give %yes. However, I would like to have this one with the color cyan, and I'm not going to have error.message here. I just need data. So again, once the data has been received and it has been displayed, I would like to redisplay our menu back. So those two are the events we are going to handle for now. So how did I get those two events? Those are directly from the socket class. So we can quickly check the documentation. So let us go to Node.js manual documentation here. Okay, so in this we are going to see the net module. So if you open that, we are going to see socket, net.socket, that is the class, and in that you are going to see the events. So you can see right now I am using data and error events, so you can use other events as necessary. So all the information is going to be made available whenever you click on the respective event. So if you go to the error, you can see it is actually going to pass a parameter called error object. So this is nothing but the parameter we are using right here. So this is going to be discussed as they provide here. So similarly, we also have data here. So say it is actually sending buffer. We actually put that one as data in our case. So that is quickly about how the documentation is with respect to net.socket. So now that we have both of these, we have not connected to the server yet. We created the socket, we are handling the events, but we did not connect to the socket, or we did not connect it to the server socket yet. So we need to connect to the TCP server. So we already have host and port numbers made available at the top. So we are going to use those both in order to connect to the server using the same socket I have at the client. So I am going to say client dot connect. So while connecting it, first of all, it needs port number, which is already available at my which is already available at the top in the form of a variable here. So similarly, after the port, I need to provide host, which is nothing but where the server is currently listening, at what IP address or the server name, whatever, and the callback function. So which means if the connection, after this particular connection happened, this is the function which is going to be executed. So I would like to have something to be written once it has connected. So for that purpose, I'm going to call the same message or something like console.log. I can say connection opened successfully. And I would like to have this one in green for now. So that is a message I have. And once the connection has been successful, I again would like to have the menu to be displayed. So the user might have selected the option 1, which means open connection. So once the open connection is executed, we will be ending up with a connect to the server. Once the connection has been accomplished successfully, we still want our menu back in order to send some data. So that is the reason I am selecting menu here. So once that is done, the user can select send or close or whatever. So this is pretty much about what we have in open connection. Okay, now let us go to the send data. So we need to implement send data right now. So that is going to be straightforward. So let us start with send data. And as you know, send data accepts a parameter that is nothing but whatever the user has provided. It is also called input or input string or whatever. So I currently called it as data. So let me use the same variable here. You can also use other things. So just wanted to use a variable data there. So whatever the user has typed in after this prompt, that particular line will be made available here. So we already have our socket opened. So imagine the socket is not opened, but the user is trying to send the data. So we need to check that option. So which means if the socket is not opened, but if we are trying to send the data, so which means the user has selected directly option 2 without really selecting option 1. So let us quickly check that option. So I'm going to say if the client itself is not populated, which means if it is null, then I'm going to say console.log. I can say connection is not open or closed, something of that message, and I wanted to have this message in red color. And immediately after that, I would like to have this menu to be displayed back to the user, and I'm going to say return. So if the client is not connected, which means the socket is not opened, it is going to display that message and redisplay the menu so that the user can select open the connection first. And if the client, or say if the socket is already open, all we have to do is just send this information to the server. In order to send information to the server, we are going to use the socket dot write. We have only one method, simple method, say write, which can essentially accept data, and in this case I am going to have data here. So I just wanted to make it simple here. I do not want to go with other options available, but if you need more options, as I mentioned, this write is going to be made available in the documentation in the same fashion as I have shown earlier. So if you go to API and if you go to net, you are going to see net.socket and you are going to see the write. So this data is also having the encoding style together with callback. So which means if it has sent successfully, if the message has been sent successfully to the server, it is going to execute the callback. For now I am not going to use that, but if you want it, you can use it. So that is pretty much about send data. So I just wanted to collapse this one. And the other one, what we are missing is close connection. So let me implement that one too. So I'm going to say close connection, so which is another function. So in this case I am going to say again the same thing whatever I have earlier. So let me copy and paste this one first. So if the client is not already open, I don't really need to close it. So I just wanted to give that message, or I can say connection is not open or already closed. Something better than the previous one, so that we will understand which option is being selected. So during the closing of connection, all I have to do is socket.destroy first, and then socket needs to be nullified so that it can be garbage collected. And on top of that, I would like to display some message to the user that the connection has been closed. So I would like to say something like connection closed successfully, and I would like to have this one in the form of hello. And once everything is done, again I have to give this option back to the user, saying that that particular user has to still work with this one. So similarly, I have open connection here, which is already doing that part. And on top of that, what else we have? So this is pretty much it, whatever we have. Okay, so after send data, it is going to have all that part. Yeah, we forgot one more thing actually. That is, we need to ensure that after sending the data, again it has to display the menu back. And similarly, after opening the connection, we still want to have the same menu back to be shown to the user. So we need to have all of these things. I forgot all that stuff. So let me execute and see if this is working. So prior to this, okay, let me execute this first. Okay, so now I'm trying to open the connection, but the server is not listening yet. Why? Because you can see I did not execute my server. The server is not listening, but still I'm trying to connect to my server. Let us see what's going on. And now you can see it says error, connection could not be opened. And this is the message I received from the error object directly. Connect connection refused. So that is the error message whatever I have received. And as we are using set timeout, it is going to take some time there, and it is going to return back to our menu back. So I keep this like this, and let us switch back to my server application, and let us start my server application and let it start listening. Now you can see the server application is listening now, and let me get the client application. Where is this guy? This is my client application. So I have my server application here and my client application here. So let me select option 1 now. Okay, I have some trouble here. So let me stop this. I still want to have my server to be listening as usual. Let me stop here. I think I did a mistake here. Once I open the connection, so I don't really need this option actually. It is already opened and then it is going to be returned back. And similarly, I don't need this one either. So I need that only for the close connection. Okay, so let me execute this. And now I have this. Okay, my server is closed. So let me execute this. I have my server and I have my client. So let me select one now, and now you can see the connection has been opened successfully. So which means the socket has been created, and you can also see to which port number it is connected. So a new connection has been made, and you can see the client connection is not closed yet. So the moment I say close, which is 3, and say yes, and you can see connection closed successfully. And you can also see the same port number 49526, that is how I connected through my socket, is saying it is closed as well. So until and unless you ask it to close, it is not going to close it. So that is how I can have the options to be selected. So either I can have the connection to be opened or closed by selecting 1 or 3. And now again, let us open the connection, which has been opened successfully. And now I would like to have some kind of information to be sent to the server. So I select option 2. And once I select option 2, it is asking for some data to be sent to the server. So I'm going to say JAG and press enter. And now you can see the server has received my message JAG, and the server has replied back with hello JAG. So this is what my client has received. And you can send as many strings as possible. I can say Scott, and you can see Scott has been received. And similarly, I select the same option and say Smith, and you can see Smith has been selected, and we receive all those. And finally I say 3, so which means the connection needs to be closed. And you can also see the server says the connection has been closed from the same client. And finally I quit. So once I quit, you are done there, and finally press Ctrl C so that you will be closed. So in that way we developed a particular TCP IP client application using Node.js. Before closing this session, we need to have a quick understanding on why I actually wrote set timeout menu as the last statement in the close connection, but I did not write that here, and I did not write that one here as well, which is supposed to be part of open connection. So you can see in the open connection, I did not have menu as my last statement. Send data, I did not have menu as last statement, but for close connection, I said menu is my last statement. So why the other two don't have, but the latest one does have? So we need to understand the flow of execution. So let us start from here. So the open connection has been made. So which means at some point after this open connection has been made, this function menu needs to be called in one way or another. Right now I am not calling immediately after open connection, so that is not being called here. And after this statement it is going to break, so which means out of switch. So I do not have any menu here. So which means this function has been completed successfully once open connection has been made. So we are not calling this menu over and over again as part of open connection. So that is for sure. But at some point after opening the connection, we are still getting this prompt. So which means this menu is getting executed at some point after opening the connection. And where is that happening? That is actually happening right here. So after the connection has been made, I am saying that please display the menu back. So this is where I am saying please get the menu back. So we don't need another menu here. So in fact, even if you write a menu here, it is trying to get that menu even before it is trying to get it connected. Why? Because this connection is asynchronous. So the connection is trying to be made, and while it is going in its own way to try to make, we are saying that please get the menu and option from the user immediately. So those two are going to be clashing to each other. So we should be very careful where we are writing or developing asynchronous based applications. We should really do or code at the particular point where the particular workflow really stops and starts. We cannot simply think in the terms of synchronous programming or synchronous execution. So in fact, even though the open connection automatically terminates first, so which means I have all of these statements. Once I call open connection in my menu, you are saying that please execute this function. The execution of this function may terminate much earlier. However, this particular connection may take a while to execute or say to get it connected. Imagine this connection is actually taking 30 seconds to connect to the server, but open connection function will not wait that much longer. It immediately terminates the moment it has passed through this statement, which means it says that please connect on your own, take your own time, but I am going to finish on my own. So this open connection execution will not wait for this particular statement to complete. It is this connect method's job to execute this function once it has established a connection, but it is not the job of open connection function to really wait for this particular method to complete. This is very important to understand as part of asynchronous executions. Similarly, let us consider the send data. So all I'm doing from here is I'm just calling send data. So after getting the input from the user, I'm saying that please send some data to the server, and I'm not calling menu immediately after this. It is going to complete immediately, just like open connection. So this menu, once it calls here, this part is done. It is going to break immediately. And if you see send data, I'm not calling any menu here, except in this case whenever the client is not available. So that's a different case. But imagine the socket is already open. All I'm saying is just write to the server. That's it. But the menu is again getting back. I did not call menu in this write, but someone is calling this menu. Otherwise, it will not prompt immediately for my next option to be provided. So who is calling it? Once we write to the server is going to respond back with some message, and that particular response is being handled right inside this particular event handler. So you write here, but you receive here. Once you receive here, you are saying that please display the message whatever you have received and get the set timeout again. So which means our menu will be displayed. So you are not displaying immediately after write, but what you are saying is you are displaying once you get any message from the system or from the server back. This may not be appropriate in all the cases, but in this case it makes sense. But usually you can also say something like after the successfully writing, if you would like to have this menu to be displayed, then you can have the callback function, something like encoding. I think by default you can say null for now. You can say within this particular function, I would like to have the menu to be executed. Even that is valid. So which means what you are saying is send data, do not wait for this particular statement to complete. just ask it to execute on its own. So send data says, hey, write, go on your own way, try to write to the server. Once you are complete, go with this function, but I am not going to wait for you, I am going to complete. So send data goes on its own way, but write, it tries to write to the server. It may take 30 seconds to write, for example. Once it completes the write, then it tries to execute this function. So then you can have the menu too. But in this case, I'm not using this as because I'm definitely expecting a response back of this particular write, and I would like to get the menu only after the response has been received. So for that purpose, in this data, which means in this response I'm having the menu. So that is the reason I did not have menu as my last statement in open connection or in send data. Let us come to close connection. Close connection is a different story. Nothing is asynchronous here. Everything is synchronous. Forget about this part. I'm saying that destroy, this is synchronous. So which means destroy that socket immediately from my client side. There is no interaction with the server here. So it is not asynchronous, it is synchronous. And this close connection function will wait until and unless the statement is complete. It will wait till the statement is complete. Will wait till the statement is complete. And then it is trying to execute menu. If you don't do this here, this close connection, after this we will never get a menu. Why? Because there is no other callback function which displays this menu. In the case of send data, we have write, which essentially we are expecting the data back from the user, from the server, and there we are saying that display the menu. So we have a callback function which essentially displays the menu whenever we write. Similarly, whenever we open the connection using connect, we are saying that this is the callback function to be executed once the connection has been made successfully, and as part of that callback function you are saying that please display the menu. So you can always display the menu as part of the callback function, as because callback functions are the ones which get executed after an asynchronous operation has been performed. So as you are doing asynchronous operations in open connection and send data, you are not really using menu to be used immediately after that, as because we need to have these operations to complete first and then only display the menu. And in order to know that those have been completed, the only way is through the callback functions. But in the case of close connection, we do not have any of the asynchronous executions here. All of those are synchronous, so which means the next statement will be executed if and only if the current statement gets executed successfully or completed successfully. So that is the reason we do not need to have menu in any of the above functions, but we need menu in the close connection.